Ladies and gentlemen, this is absolutely huge. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. In a couple of seconds, you will hear a laundry list of truly absurd expenditures by the United States government, your tax dollars, going to countries around the world for really stupid, bizarre, and ideologically driven taxpayer-funded projects that have zero, and I repeat, zero to do with U.S. national security. So USAID, for example, is said to be an instrument of soft power, trying to influence other countries to become to abide by U.S. national interest. That is the opposite of what's been taking place. You have billions of dollars going to very bizarre and absurd left-leaning projects, or projects that were inspired by left-leaning ideologies. We'll get to that in a second. You will hear the Fox News segment in a second, but I want to read you this. This happened a couple of minutes ago. Trump administration says it will slash 90% of USAID foreign aid contracts. Supreme Court temporarily blocks order for Trump administration to release billions in U.S. foreign aid. You have lower courts telling President Trump, leader of the executive branch, and under the Constitution, he can fire anyone he wants. He can terminate any government program located within the executive branch. The Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, all the intelligence agencies, the Department of Education, I believe, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, like I said, these are all within the executive branch. This is 100% legal. It's part of the Constitution. I believe it's Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution. The president is leader of the executive branch. There's no debate over this. The problem, however, is that you have an activist judicial apparatus or system. Lower courts are saying, no, President Trump can't do that. Well, the Supreme Court, the highest court in the United States of America, stated that President Trump can indeed withhold foreign aid, especially in this instance where Democrats and a judge are saying that he has to he has to give the foreign aid immediately. That's not the case. The Supreme Court said you don't have to give the foreign aid without looking at it first and deciding whether or not your administration deems it worthy. Your taxpayer dollars are going to absurd causes around the world, and we should all know about these things. What Democrats and media generally don't want people to know is what their taxpayers are going towards. See, unfortunately, morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats, who are wonderful people, oftentimes don't truly believe, they do not truly believe in their alleged value system. This is why they don't campaign on doing away with borders. They don't campaign on a whole bunch of things like expanding the Supreme Court or all the other nonsensical policy objectives that they, give tacit approval towards, but they're embarrassed of. So oftentimes you'll say, look, this is taking place, and Democrats say, no, it's not. And then you point to an article and say, it's not really taking place. But anyway, I'm getting lost here trying to explain the mindset of the morally superior. I'll just read you this. Washington, the Trump administration said Wednesday it is eliminating more than 90% of the U.S. Agency for International Development foreign aid contracts and $60 billion in overall U.S. assistance around the world, putting numbers on its plans to eliminate the majority of U.S. development and humanitarian help abroad. Well, again, this is not exactly true. Not all of it is just simply humanitarian. It's more ideologically driven. Again, Democrats don't really want you to know the specific policies and the specific expenditures, and you'll get to that in a second. Ladies and gentlemen, the Supreme Court intervened in the case late Wednesday and temporarily blocked a court order requiring the administration to release billions of dollars in foreign aid by midnight. This is a huge, huge victory for Trump. This is why. Okay, Democrats do not want you to know about this type of foreign aid for obvious reasons. Hit subscribe to this channel, and this is where your tax money is going. This is Biden's foreign policy. President Obama's foreign policy, and this is exactly what took place for decades. It's Trump and Elon Musk that are exposing all of this.
There are also reports that USAID has fallen short of its goals for some projects in years past. Republicans have pointed out USAID has spent $20 million for a Sesame Street workshop in Iraq. It's doled out $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces and business communities. It's given $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt, all initiatives that Republicans say are just plain wasteful.
So again, Democrats with their immigration policies should have simply run on having no borders. They should have simply passed the bill and said, this is what we believe in, instead of giving tacit approval to policies that essentially amount to having no functioning borders. They should simply run on $20 million for Sesame Street in Iraq. They should have simply said, we think this is fantastic, and vote for us, and we will then send $20 million for a Sesame Street workshop in the Middle East. They're embarrassed of all of these these expenditures. They don't want you to know about any of this, and a lot of it is a slush fund. A lot of it likely, I should say, is a slush fund. A lot of it likely goes to non-governmental organizations, political action committees, possibly publications. We've learned about that, into this possibly gigantic apparatus pushing one political ideology. Okay, so $20 million for Sesame Street in the Middle East does not in any way, shape, or form serve American national interest abroad. Okay, let's continue.
I have been on USAID's case for years now, going back several years, where I was trying to investigate the expenditures for humanitarian aid, primarily when it came to the war in Ukraine. And what my team and I encountered was absolute obstruction and lies coming out of USAID.
But supporters say USAID has helped counter Russian and Chinese influence around the world. They also say the 90-day freeze the president has.
Now, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, says there are a lot of good programs at USAID, but I don't expect any of those. $7,000 for House has got its sights. $1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplace and business communities. $70,000 for production of a DEI musical in Ireland. $2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam. $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia. $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. It goes on and on and on. Now, Marco Rubio, the
So again, Democrats should simply run on this. They just simply run on this.
Secretary of State says there are a lot of good programs at USAID, but I don't expect any of those are what he's referring to.
Absolutely, John. And I have been on USAID's case for years now, going back several years, where I was trying to investigate the expenditures for humanitarian aid, primarily when it came to the war in Ukraine. And what my team and I encountered was absolute obstruction and lies coming out of USAID. They did everything possible to stop me from accessing their records to understand where our taxpayer money was going. I eventually partnered with Representative Mike McCall in the House, and we started a formal congressional investigation. And even after that, they really pushed back, only allowed us access to a small amount of data. But what we found was extreme expenditures on the part of USAID with very little data-driven results.
Again, if Democrats truly believe in these types of expenditures, they should run on this. They should be proud and vocal and simply say, look, we want to fund operas and Sesame Street and all these types of, cartoon books and all these types of things abroad. They wouldn't in a million years run on that, because they know the average American, even if you agree with that ideology, doesn't want taxpayer-funded projects in other countries where there's zero evidence any of these projects work to actually bring the country closer to the United States of America. In many cases, you're looking at very conservative or cultures that simply don't accept this type of ideology. Anyway, let's hit subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much. I'll be here tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. This is a huge, huge victory for President Trump in the Supreme Court. Thank you.